Coming up on iOS Today, I'm joined by Christopher Lawley, and we're going to talk about his favorite things in iOS 17 and have a deep dive into Final Cut Pro for iPad.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is iOS Today, episode 667, recorded on Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023. Final Cut Pro Deep Dive with Chris Lawley.
This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by ACI Learning. IT skills are outdated in about 18 months. Launch or advance your career today with quality, affordable, entertaining training. Individuals use code TWIT30 for 30% off a standard or premium individual IT Pro membership at go.acilearning.com/twit. And by NetSuite. Right now, you can download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist, designed to give you consistently excellent performance, absolutely free at netsuite.com/twit.
Hello and welcome to iOS Today, the show where we talk all things iOS, tvOS, watchOS, HomePodOS, iPadOS, all of the OSs, including sometimes the SOS feature built into your iPhones, iPads, and Apple Watches. And today, Micah is out. Don't worry, he'll be back next week, folks. But instead, I am joined by the wonderful Christopher Lawley. Hi, Chris. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, Rose. It's been a minute since you and I have got a chance to talk to each other, so I'm excited. I think the last time was on your other podcast, Automators, so I'm excited to dive into some stuff.
Oh, yeah, me too, especially because, Micah and I have been talking over the summer about some of our favorite features in iOS 17 and iPadOS 17 and, what good stuff is coming. But you use your devices a little differently to Micah, a little differently to myself. And so we figured it would be a really good opportunity to get your input on what some of the things that you're most excited by. Because, there's obviously some Shortcuts features I'm very, very excited by. And we'll talk about those in Shortcuts Corner later today. But yeah, everybody uses their devices differently. So do you want to tell us about maybe one of your favorite features or something that you are really enjoying that's changed in iOS 17?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a big iPad user. The iPad is my main computer. It was that way for years. And then some buggy things happened with the video editing software I used, and I had to move away from it being my main computer. But this year, between the changes we're getting in iPadOS 17 and the stuff that we got, or the fact that we got Final Cut on the iPad now, the iPad is back to being my main computer. One of the changes that happened last year, though, with iPadOS 16 that I really wasn't super thrilled about was Stage Manager. Stage Manager was the new form of multitasking on the iPad. And in fact, I have my iPad screen here that I can pull up for you. And the nice thing about Stage Manager is it brought windowing to the iPad. So you could, resize windows. You could put multiple windows in here, all sorts of really nice things when it came to, multitasking on the iPad. You could have up to 4 windows in a stage. A stage is basically like what you see on your iPad, and I can, bring over to the right. You can see I have multiple stages over here and stuff like that. But some issues with Stage Manager when it came to the iPad was it was very heavy-handed to where you could place certain windows. It tried to snap to a really specific grid. And I don't know about you, Rose, but I hated that. It was very heavy-handed.
It's very heavy-handed, and then also on top of that, trying to move a window off to another stage didn't always work, or trying to get a new window of an existing app in a stage. That was the thing that had been bugging me for ages, and it was kind of difficult to do. And it seems like that's got quite a bit better in iPadOS 17.
Yeah, so with that, you can literally place a window anywhere now. You can move it around. Now, if you start to put a window towards one of the corners, it will snap to that corner. I don't know. For those that are watching the video feed, you can kind of see how I'll let go and it'll snap towards that top left corner, or it'll kind of snap towards the center if you get there. But other than that, you can place a window anywhere you want, which is really nice and shouldn't sound like a novelty feature, especially considering we've had this on Mac OS and Windows and stuff like that forever. But this was a really nice change that they did. Also, resizing windows is a lot more fluid now. You can really resize to different sizes, but and I know you're aware of this because you do development work. It still relies on what's called size classes. So basically, the way window resizing works on the iPad is it takes the smallest version of the iPhone app and can scale all the way up to the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. And there's different sizes in between there. And it uses those size classes of different devices to resize. And now it's a lot more fluid, a lot more nice and flowing. It's not as heavy-handed, just like placing. So that's really nice.
Yeah, it really is. And one of the things that I love about Stage Manager as well is it's not just on the Pro iPads. It is also on the iPad Air 5th generation as well. So you don't have to have a Pro device to use it. That said, it does still break me sometimes when I'm on my iPad mini and I'm like, so I just want to have like 3 windows. I kind of want messages smaller. Oh no, I don't have Stage Manager here. Darn it. But you know what? It is on the 11-inch iPad Pro, and folks might be thinking, multiple windows at once on like an 11-inch screen, isn't that kind of small? Don't forget, Apple did make an 11-inch MacBook Air for years. And honestly, I find it works very well, especially considering the fact that when you put a window behind other windows, it kind of grays out a little bit. So you're aware that it's not the active window. And that's snapping to device classes. You know, it's the difference between an iPhone or an iPad or an iPad mini where a developer can say, hey, this should be like at the bottom here. And then Apple kind of does a little bit of magic to help everybody out so that when a new device comes along, it's just a little bit bigger. Then they don't have to update everything. Like that change from the 9.7-inch to the 10-inch tablet. That was made a lot easier thanks to things like that.
Yes, absolutely. And if you have an iPad Pro or that 5th generation iPad Air, the one with the M1 chip, or 2018, 2020, or any of the M series 11-inch iPad Pros, or the M1 or M2 iPad or 12.9-inch iPad Pro. This is very confusing, I know. But you can go into settings. Let me pull up settings here, and display and brightness, and then go into display zoom, and you can enable the more space feature. And what this will do is it will run your iPad at a higher resolution. So if you are adding those 3 apps to your stage or something like that, you have more space to spread them out and reference them and go back and forth without apps covering each other up if you want. It's a really nice feature. If your iPad supports that, I highly recommend it. It's one of those settings I've turned on and I don't really ever turn off, except with a few exceptions when it comes to filming my devices. But that's entirely weird niche right there.
Yeah. And honestly, it's great that you can take advantage of something like that. And I'm also going to remind folks that they should check their control center settings, because if you want to play with Stage Manager and give it a go, then you should. You can add it to your control center on your iPad as well in the settings. If you go to settings, control center, you can customize what's in control center. That's on iPhone and iPad. And then you can make sure that Stage Manager is included there. So you can easily turn it on. But if you run into, every so often I'll run into like a particular app that just doesn't seem to work when I've got Stage Manager enabled. So it's really easy to just toggle it off then and use the app and then be on my way with Stage Manager.
Yes, absolutely. And with that control center toggle, you can go in there and long press on it, and you can toggle off the recent strip that comes up on the left side or the dock. So for me, I find that recent strip to be very heavy handed. Like it's just a lot there, because I use a 12.9-inch iPad Pro. I run it in the more space feature, but it still takes up a lot of UI space. So I like to hide that, and you can reveal it anytime by swiping in. But I leave the dock always visible. So that's kind of like a nice feature you can use if you have Control Center enabled in the Stage Manager enabled in Control Center. These names, Rose, these names.
Yes. Yeah. You can also, I should note, control that in the settings. So if you go into settings, it's under multitasking and gestures. You can turn on and off multitasking in general. This is new in iOS 17. I believe you weren't able to turn off multitasking previously, but you certainly can now. And then you can have multitasking be off. split view and slide over or stage manager. And so my iPad has just woken up. So I'm going to see if I can just show that off. And it doesn't appear to be super happy. There we go. So here I've got the option for off, split view and slide over in stage manager. And then those toggles that you were mentioning, the recent apps and the dock as well. I can turn those on and off because of course I'm using stage manager. It took me a little while. I'm still not using it on the Mac. Have to confess, it doesn't quite gel with how I work on the Mac, but it works very well for me on the iPad.
I'm with you. I don't use it on the Mac as well. It just doesn't. It doesn't work with my sense of how the Mac multitasking should work. But one of the things that is coming to the iPad version of Stage Manager, but as far as I know, isn't on the Mac version, or at least it wasn't on the Mac version the last time I checked. I very, very rarely check in with the Mac OS betas because I don't really cover those until after the iPadOS releases out. But it is when you're in Stage Manager, and if you have an app open, so right here I got Notes open, if you hold down Shift on your keyboard and then click on another app, and this can be from Spotlight, the Recent Strip, your dock, app library, doesn't matter, it can be from anywhere, it will add that app to this current stage. So in the previous behavior or normal behavior, if you just tap on an app, it will go to that other stage. But if you shift click on it, it will take that app and add it to your current stage, which makes building stages so much quicker. I absolutely really like just like how much faster that is when it comes to building this. Rose, have you been using the shift clicking option to kind of like, move apps like to your current stage and stuff like that?
Yeah, I have been trying it out a little bit, but it's one of those things that it's taking my brain a while to adjust to it. And I'm not entirely certain why. I think probably because I've just been so focused on all of the other cool features that my brain kind of forgets about that until I've mostly done something. And then it's like, oh, well, I mean, I'll just keep dragging because that's what I'm already doing. But the shift click option is great.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's something our mutual friend and I, Federico Vitici, and I had been like asking for like a year. So when they added it, like I was jumping off the walls in my hotel room at WWDC, just so excited that it was there. The other thing, if you don't use a keyboard, what you can do is you can grab a window, and this is an iPadOS 17. So if you're using Stage Manager and iPadOS 16, it's not there yet, but this is a 17 thing. You can grab a window, move it around a bit, and then tap on another app. I'll tap on reminders here, and my iPad crashed. That is beta life for you right there.
That's what happens, especially when you're running developer betas, because it just happens every once in a while that things will crash. And this is one of the reasons why, folks, if you're there going, oh, I really like the look of this, by all means, install the public betas, but it is a little bit of a not buyer beware, tester beware. You're testing something that's brand new that hasn't been released yet, and it won't be out until September. But it looks like it's probably about 3 weeks out or so until the release at this moment.
Yeah, don't remind me. I'm still not ready for that. But what should have happened is it should have taken the app that I grabbed it and added it to the stage that I was selecting, just like shift clicking would have, but it crashed, so it didn't work. But yeah, Stage Manager's got some improvements. External Monitor also got some improvements. One of my favorite things about it is iPadOS now does a better job of remembering your window placement and window sizes when you plug into an external monitor, move apps around, unplug, and then come back to it later. It should remember those app placements quite a bit better now. And that was something that it did not do in iPadOS 16 and drove me up the wall because that was bad.
Yeah, it was a little bit tricky, but there's been a lot of improvements when it comes to external display support over time. Originally, all you could do was mirror your screen, and so what you saw on the iPad was what you saw on the projector or TV or monitor that you plugged into. And now, as time has gone on, they have decided that a lot of people like to use an iPad, perhaps with a trackpad, like I've got here, where I've got the Magic keyboard attached to my iPad Pro. Or, some folks even use a Bluetooth mouse. Don't forget, folks, you don't have to, spend all of the money on Apple's most expensive accessories. You can just get a standard Bluetooth keyboard and a Bluetooth mouse. Something, not exactly this one. This one is not Bluetooth, but a Bluetooth mouse like the Logitech ones. They're really good and they will connect. And you could even program some of those extra buttons if you wanted to do magic things like, activate a hot corner or even run a shortcut. So there's a lot that they've done with iPadOS as time has gone on. And it's really good to see improvements like shift clicking those windows to move them around. But also, Chris, there's something else you want to talk about, which I'm very happy about. Lock screen in iPadOS is finally getting widgets. Finally, we're getting those same fancy home screens that we've had on our iPhones for a while. I'm not sure why it's not showing my home screen. There we go. That is going to come to the iPad with iPadOS 17. So yeah, it's really exciting. Which widgets are you most excited to use on your iPad home screen?
Do we want to talk lock screen or home screen first?
Let's talk lock screen and then we'll look at the home screen.
So my favorite thing about the lock screen isn't necessarily a specific widget, but it's the fact that they didn't just port the iPhone version over. When the iPad is in landscape, you now get this column view of widgets on the left side. If the iPad is in portrait mode, you get that traditional iPhone lock screen where it's just 4 widgets underneath. But the ones that I've been using lately are really a lot of reference widgets on my lock screen. So at the top, I have carrot weather. Just to kind of, show the weather. Right now, it's actually nice outside, which is the first time it's been this way in months. So that's lovely. Calendar underneath that. Reminders, because over the summer, I switched to Apple's productivity apps like Reminders, Notes, their calendar app and stuff like that, just because I like to test out the features in there. Then Timery, which I know we're both big fans of Timery. And then I have Parcel underneath that one. I don't have any deliveries. And then I have 2 shortcuts, single widgets underneath that. One of those runs a shortcut that plays my current podcast from Overcast, and it plays it to all of my HomePods in my house. I have 3 sets of HomePods throughout the house, and that will play a podcast throughout all of them. And then the other one will play my Apple Music radio station. We'll play that throughout the house. So they're just like quick buttons to quickly get music or podcasts to start playing throughout the house. And then the last one I have on there is the battery widget, because I like to just, kind of see what the battery health or battery life of my iPad, AirPods, Apple Pencil, all that kind of stuff. Oftentimes I'll have a trackpad, or if I have a Bluetooth keyboard paired, it will show up there as well. So those are kind of my favorite lock screen ones that I've been playing with. Do you have some? Let me rephrase. Those are my favorite lock screen ones that I've been playing with that I'm allowed to talk about. Wink, wink.
That is kind of the problem, isn't it? Because there's a couple of apps in beta that have got some really great lock screen widgets, and then we're not allowed to talk about them. So I was just trying to remove them from my home screen. And I realized that I re-added the old version of a widget, and now it's showing the wrong information. But it's fine. I'll pretend that I do actually have 48 overdue tasks on my iPad lock screen. It's 50 now. Great, that's fabulous. So on my iPad lock screen, one of the other things that I'll just note is when you go into customize, they've got some really awesome new wallpapers, including different planets. And so I've got Saturn here. And you can then also customize the time, so you can use different fonts and things like that. You can change the color, and this color kind of applies to everything that you're setting it for. So, I could do a light blue. I had it as a little purple just now, or was it that purple? There we go. And so, I've got a couple of different widgets. And for me, some of these widgets I'm using because I prefer the alternative apps to the main apps. So for example, instead of calendar, I have Fantastical here, not necessarily because this particular widget is hugely different to the calendar widget, but because then when I tap on it, it opens Fantastical instead of it opening the calendar app. I do have a carrot weather widget here. I don't quite understand why it's not showing up at the moment. I've got OmniFocus underneath it because I like knowing, how many overdue tasks I have at the moment. I swear I don't have 50 overdue tasks. I have one task due later today and that's it. But it's being a little silly. I've got Timery there as well. And then HomeKit. I've got HomeKit actions here as well because HomeKit finally got widgets. So the Home app has widgets that you can add to your home screen or your lock screen on your iPhone and your iPad, which is just really, really great because I've been after home widgets for a while. And there have been other apps that have done it and they've done their best with it, but they have to open. And I have a feeling some folks are going to be taking advantage of those interactive widgets in iOS and iPadOS 17 as well to make this even better.
Yeah, I'm very excited about widgets as a whole. I think again are going to be the big thing this year, especially because widgets are now interactive. When you tap on them, they don't just launch the app. Like some of them still do, but some of them, like reminders or OmniFocus or things, they're going to have the ability to mark tasks as completed. So here, I'll cut over to my iPad home screen here, and these are kind of the widgets. I can talk about. I quickly removed some this morning. There's definitely some apps that are coming out that are going to be very exciting. But on here, I have Carrot Weather, which this one isn't interactive. Actually, this isn't even the beta. The beta might have an interactive widget. I don't think I'm on the beta for Carrot Weather. Calendar, because again, I use the Apple Calendar widgets or the Apple productivity apps during the summer just to test them out. Reminders, and Reminders is great because you can come in here and you can check tasks off. I'm not going to check any of these tasks off because actually I can check this one off because we're doing it right now, and you can just mark it as completed. It's so nice. So nice. And then that's what I got to do for the rest of the day. But here I have a stack. And this is where things get interesting is you have apps like Timery, where these are for time tracking. And I can tap on any one of these and it will just start running the timer now without having to open the app, which is so nice. I absolutely love that. Yeah. It just makes things really nice. But then you have... Let me go back here. If you're watching the video feed, some developers are doing some interesting things. And I think this is okay to talk about because the developer has posted about it publicly. So it's going to be one of those things that's easier to ask for forgiveness than to beg for permission. But some widgets are going even more interactive that you're going to be able to click on things. So I could click on video projects here and it'll pull up, it'll basically refresh the widget and it'll pull up all my stuff specifically for video projects that I've been time tracking. It's really nice. I've seen this happen for a few different apps that basically apps are refreshing their view to make it the interactive widgets display different stuff depending on what you click or tap on. That is really cool.
Yes. I'm very excited just in general about the whole idea of interactive widgets and not having to, tap on the widget and it opens the app and then you tap on the thing that you wanted to open in this. The only slight problem I've been having, and I don't know, Chris, maybe you've had this problem as well. I know some of our listeners and watchers have been having this issue. Are widgets randomly resetting for you in iOS and iPadOS 17? Like just every couple of days, like everything seems to just reset and not have any memory of what it was doing before, because that's been driving me absolutely nuts.
This has been a big issue for the last 3 or 4 betas, and I know it's a known issue. We are now at the point where we should be getting beta updates every week. So I'm hoping... I'm hoping now in about the next half hour or so when we're recording this, there'll be a new update and this will be finally fixed, because this is the bug that is just driving me nuts over the whole summer, because almost all of my widgets are customized in some way. So when these widgets reset, and they reset every day or so, it takes so much time to get them back to where they were. For a little while, I just kind of gave up and was just like, okay, I'm not going to use widgets right now because this is frustrating. But then I realized how useful widgets actually are, and that just wasn't an option for me. But yes, hopefully this is a known issue. Hopefully it gets fixed soon. Especially hopefully it gets fixed before it actually ships in September in just a couple of weeks. So I'm so not ready for that. But yeah, I'm really liking widgets. I have a couple more that I can show you that I've been using. So I have Notes right here. Notes isn't anything particularly new. It's doing the same thing it was doing in iPadOS 16. You can click on one of these and it'll open right to that note, which is really nice. I use this to quickly launch my notes for the OS stuff over the summer, so I can just quickly, if I find something or if I need to write something down because I need to try something out later or there's a bug, I can just open that note, write it down. Really nice. Music now has playback, so you can actually start playing music right from the widget. I'm not going to do it because I'm afraid it's going to start actually playing music, and I don't want any copyright strikes for you guys, so that would not be good.
Greatly appreciated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a couple of different music widgets. So there's this one that just is your currently played, what's currently playing. You can play and pause. This is stations for you, kind of recommended stuff. This is the app Dark Noise. I absolutely love this app. I know the developer is working on an iPadOS and iOS 17 version, but these are not interactive yet. And then Overcast is the last of that stack. But the widget that I absolutely am loving over the summer is the home widget. I control so much from here. Just this button right here. I can just tap that button and it opens my garage door. My garage door is now opened. It's awesome. I love that. I should probably close that before I forget. But yeah, it's so nice to be able to just quickly from your home screen to toggle a scene or turn off something, or manage the thermostat. Thermostat will actually open the home app, so it won't let you do anything right from the widget, but it's kind of a nice little quick shortcut. Yeah. And then the last one is the Excel shortcut widget, and I know you have to be as excited about that as I am.
I'm very excited. I'm not only excited about that, I'm also very excited about the new small shortcuts widget, which has two actions on it instead of one, because one small widget takes up 4 app icon spaces. So it's really nice to see it, one of those with 2 actions on, just for those folks like myself who have a little small widget section and they wanted to have more than one shortcut in that button. It's also just come to my attention, thank you very much, Scooter X, for posting this in the chat room, that Shazam has updated to add lock screen widgets. Nice. They're adding this for iOS 16, which is really nice. But yeah, so if you are a Shazam user, which, if you ever use Siri to identify a song, congrats, you're a Shazam user, even if you don't have the app installed. But if you install the app, then you'll have a couple of lock screen widgets that you can use. So that is definitely worth checking out if you are a Shazam user. So with that said, we've been talking about widgets and iPadOS and iOS 17 for a while, and I actually have a little message from Micah and one of our sponsors.
Hey, just got to pull you away from the show really quick. I hope you are enjoying it. Thank you, Christopher Lawley, for subbing in for me. I will be back next week. I do want to tell you about our first sponsor of iOS Today this week. It's ACI Learning, and we love ACI Learning. Our listeners are probably familiar with the name IT Pro. This is one of our trusted sponsors for the last decade. And as part of ACI Learning now, IT Pro has elevated their highly entertaining, bingeable, short format content with more than 7,200 hours to choose from, and new episodes are added daily. ACI Learning's personal account managers will be with you every step of the way. This is a really cool bit of the training. You can fortify your expertise with access to self-paced IT training videos, interactive practice labs, and certification practice tests. One user shared, quote, "Excellent resource, not just for theory, but labs incorporated within the subscription. It's fantastic. Highly recommend the resource and top class instructors." So don't miss ACI Learning's practice labs, where you can test and experiment before deploying new apps or updates without compromising your live system. And MSPs love it. You can retake practice IT certification tests so you're confident when you sit for the actual exam. ACI Learning brings you IT practice exam questions from Microsoft, from CompTIA, from EC Council, from PMI, and many more. Access every vendor and skill you need to advance your IT career in one place. ACI Learning is the only official video training for CompTIA. Or you can check out their Microsoft IT training, Cisco training, Linux training, Apple training, security, cloud, and more. Yes, ACI Learning has so much to offer. And join ACI Learning September 26th through the 27th in London at the International Cybersecurity and Cloud Expo to experience the latest innovations and cutting-edge technologies. Learn IT, pass your certs, and get your dream job. Or, if you're ready to bring your group along, head over to our special link and fill out the form for your team. Twit listeners, yes, you receive at least 20% off an IT Pro Enterprise solution and can reach up to 65% for volume discounts depending on the number of seats you need. Learn more about ACI Learning's premium training options across audit, IT, and cybersecurity readiness at go.acilearning.com/twit. For individuals, use code TWIT30 for 30% off a standard or premium individual IT Pro membership. That's go.acilearning.com/twit. All right, let's head back to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Micah, for sending that message from the other side, which is probably the other side of your vacation. But Chris, one of the other things that you wanted to talk about, you mentioned before that, during the summer, you switched back to Apple's core apps to really give them a solid try. So things like reminders and notes and so on. How's that going for you? Are there any particular features that you're really excited about? I know when I saw cross-linking in notes, I went, oh, they've been listening to productivity nerds and they're loving the fact that people are actually, getting involved with taking their own personal notes and cross-linking them. And so they've added that feature to notes. But is there anything else you're really excited about?
Yeah, so that cross-linking thing is definitely the big thing for me. There's a couple of ways you can do this. If you're in tablet mode or on an iPhone, you can just tap where the insertion point is, and you can type add link, and you can enter a normal URL if you want. So you could enter twit.tv or my website or your website or whatever you want, or you can just start typing for a note. And once you do, you can actually just insert a link to that note in any other note, and you can just tap on that and it'll jump right to it, which is really, really nice. I absolutely love the cross-linking feature. Rose, I don't really write code anymore. I know you do. Have you used the new monostyle and code blocking feature yet?
I've given it a little try. Honestly, my biggest problem is that I don't ever write code outside of code. I'll be using whatever application I'm using to write notes, to write code, and then put it in there. That said, it is really nice that I can pop some code in here. So I'll try and get rid of that sidebar. There we go. So I could put, say, for example, I'm going to try and write some Apple's code. See, this is the problem. It didn't even lowercase my first letter here. But if I tell application Safari to open a new tab with parameters, I think this is how I'm trying to remember now. Twit.tv. There we go. It works. It's not perfect. It doesn't have things like line numbers. There's no syntax highlighting. I can't tell it what kind of code this is. So it's not going to, highlight the word Safari differently because that's special. And it won't highlight twit.tv correctly either. But at the same time, it's nice that there is an option here to insert that because, I do have bits of code in some notes in various places, usually on how to set up a particular weird thing or something like that. But it's just good that they're adding more and more of these options and things like PDFs annotation coming into notes as well. So you can insert a PDF into your notes. You can pick up an Apple Pencil. Yep, I'm holding an Apple Pencil right here for the folks who are listening, and I'm waving it around. And you can just write on that PDF inside of notes. That's just something that's really nice and something that works very well for me and the way that I take notes as well. If I'm, listening to a presentation or something, then I'll be taking photos of the screen, or if I've got the slides as PDF, I'll be annotating that as I go. So it's really good that that is now all inside of notes.
Yeah, that's really nice. The PDF stuff is really cool. The code linking stuff, if I still worked in IT, I think I would use that to just save snippets of code that I wrote often for different PowerShell scripts and stuff like that. I would probably just save into notes, just as a place that's kind of my own, that I don't, it's not public. It's not, GitHub or the other one that I'm blanking on. Me and names never go well. So yeah, the note stuff is good. Yeah. Me and names, I don't know what it is, but I'm terrible with them. But the other app that got a lot of really cool features is Reminders. So one of Reminders' new feature is it has grocery list support with auto sorting. So if you come in and create a project, and when you're creating a project, if you change the list type to groceries, it adds this auto sorting feature. So when you go and add a new item to your grocery list, and I just went grocery shopping, that's why I don't have much on my list here, but you can type in something like steak, and it didn't work oh, there it goes. Okay. It didn't work right away. Normally it's a little bit faster, but it auto sorted that into the meat section. And then you could add stuff like butter, and that'll add it into the dairy section. And it uses, Apple's favorite term, machine learning, to go through, figure out, what you're adding to the list, puts it into the proper category. So that way, when you're going down the grocery store, you're going through the aisles, and you're in the dairy aisle, you can grab all the stuff that's dairy related. When you're in the meat aisle, you can grab all the stuff meat related. When you're in the frozen aisle, you can grab all the frozen related stuff. Absolutely love this feature. I thought it was so cool.
Yes,
the other thing
is.
Go for it, Rose. Yeah,
I was just going to say, it really is. Well, yeah, it is. And also, folks should probably know, at least over here in the UK and in my experience in Europe, supermarkets tend to be laid out in like the same way everywhere. So at least in the UK, pretty much every supermarket when you go in will either have fruit first or cold or chilled things first, and then it'll go into sort of like dry goods, then household goods, and then drinks, and then frozen right at the end. And so the fact that it does this categorization makes it really, really handy, because you're not going to find bananas next to the toilet paper in a supermarket. And even if the order isn't perfect, having those things grouped together means it's much less likely that you're going to have to run all the way back from the ice cream freezer to the fruit section because you needed bananas for that banana split sundae that you were going to make.
Yep, absolutely. And that's 100% what I used to do. Is I would just put a list of items in there, wasn't in any particular category, and I was running back and forth between the grocery store. How you said the grocery stores are laid out in the UK, that's exactly how they're laid out here. At least in California, you have your fruits and vegetables, your drinks, your breads, your household, blah, 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 blah. Really, really nice. The categorized feature is really nice. But the other feature in Reminders that is huge is project sections. And this will look very familiar to anyone that has ever done Kanban. This right here is all the video projects I am working on. And as you can see, you have all the projects and you can just move them to the different categories. It's so nice. You can drag and drop. If you've never used Kanban before, basically the idea is you write out all your tasks and you write out the steps to do them. So this could be very simple as like, this is an idea, this is active, this is finished, and you just move them to the different categories as you're working on them. I absolutely love this feature. This was a big thing for me to be like, okay, I can actually rely on Reminders this summer, because if you're watching the video feed, as you can see, I have a lot going on. I have a lot I need to get caught up on. So hopefully I can get caught up on it. And this feature alone has been very helpful. I've been using it in a few other projects, but this is the one I can show off that doesn't have anything too sensitive in it that I would get in trouble for. But yeah, I really like this. Have you used the project feature Reminders yet, Rose?
Yeah, I have. And I have to say, it's one of those things where I'm loving that these features are coming to Reminders, because I often get asked by folks, especially iOS Today listeners, I'm looking for a really good task management app that can do like these things, but I don't want it to be super expensive. I don't want it to be super complicated. And I just need like Reminders, but a little bit more. So the fact that the little bit more is working its way into Reminders is great. Last year we got templates for lists and things like that. This year we got Kanban. For folks wondering why I'm not saying Kanban board, that's because the board is Bon in Kanban. There we go. Random language thing for you today.
I didn't know that.
There we go. It's, all of these things are coming in to make Reminders a more powerful app. But at the same time, if you just want to use it to have like a list and you want to call it Christmas and you just want to write penguins in it and then tree and I don't know, snow, you can do that. You can keep it super, super simple, or you can, get a little more advanced with nested tasks and things like that. And it's great that these options are there and, that all of this stuff is here as well. And also, don't forget, folks, the Tips app built into iOS and iPadOS. Every time iOS releases, the big updates, then they also update Tips to tell you how to use these cool new features. So when iOS 17 and iPadOS 17 come out, if you're there going, wait, there was that column view that Chris showed off on iOS Today. Where is that? Obviously, you can write into the show, iOS Today at twit.tv, to ask us about it. But you can also have a look in the Tips app to see if there is a little guide there that will tell you how all this stuff works.
Yeah, absolutely. Tips app is very underrated. The last thing I want to cover in this section, at least, is Mail. Mail got a really cool feature that has been long overdue. If you have some text, you can highlight it, long press on it, or right click on it, whatever you want, and there is now the option to add link. So you can turn this into a hyperlink. So I'm just going to add my website here really quick. And of course it spaced it because I didn't just paste it. And you can, you have the arrow next to it. You could just open the link and it'll go right to my website, which is not loading. Oh, and I did not type something correctly. That is not my website. But that's okay.
Well, maybe you should take advantage, Chris. Inside of the settings app, there is a really cool feature under keyboards where you can have it autocorrect words for you. So if you put that misspelling of your website in there, then it can also, and the correct version, then it will remember that. But you could also just put the correct version in. And then if you type it, it won't automatically try and add more spaces in.
Yeah, I should do that. I also have a keyboard, one of the autofill keyboard shortcuts set up to I don't know why I didn't use that. I was just too many things at once and ADHD kicked in.
All excited.
But yeah, no, I'm very excited. Hyperlinks are actually in Mail now because I've had a shortcut for years now that basically will take a markdown link and turn it into a hyperlink, just so I could put hyperlinks in messages and not have to paste these big old long URLs into emails that didn't look good.
Yeah. It is one of those things that could be quite frustrating. And I know what I often did was write in drafts, and I'd write in Markdown in drafts and then just be like, and put it in Mail. And then, even if all I did was open it as a new message in Mail and then cut the content and go to the thing I was replying to and paste it there, saved me so much aggro with weird links that didn't look good or look right or whatever. So yeah, it's great that Mail's got that. It also got a snooze feature, didn't it? So that you can say, hey, this message, I want to be reminded about this. It's not exactly snooze in the sense that it goes away the same as other snooze does. Apple has decided they're going to do snooze a little differently. But basically it means that it'll pop up at, whatever time you say. So if you say, hey, snooze this until Sunday at 9, you'll be reminded, hey, this message is here that you wanted to be reminded about, which is very nice.
Yeah, I've never used those. They've never been my I don't know. I'm just I'm the kind of person, if I don't deal with an email message right away, it'll just sit in my inbox for weeks and I just will never deal with it.
Well, I have used this sort of thing, and it's great for something like, say, a ticket for an event, where you need to have the email for things like that. So a little piece of news for folks who haven't found out yet. Relay FM is having their 10th anniversary show next year in London. I am going to be there. So if you're an iOS Today listener and you want to be at the Relay Live event in London, say hi, please come. But if I were getting tickets for that, obviously as a Relay FM host, I'm doing things a little differently, but I would snooze that email so that then I don't have to, go digging through my email to find it later, to print out the piece of paper, because the piece of paper between now and next July is going to disappear. It is absolutely not going to be wherever I put it. So this way, I can be reminded about that email just before I need the tickets, which is always, a great solution for things like that.
Yeah, I've been meaning to go back to the UK. Maybe I might go to that. I don't know. We'll see. That's a long flight for me.
It is, but at the same time, there's going to be a whole bunch of other nerds here, and I need to work on Micah and see if maybe Micah can come and so on as well, because that would be really great fun if we can, do that. Maybe we can even do an iOS Today in person here, and if we got you on with us, that would be really awesome. So
yeah, exactly. There's very few times where all of our friends and stuff get together every year. So it's when there is a get together, you want to be there, even if it's halfway around the world.
Yes, definitely. All right. Well, before you do a fabulous Final Cut Pro demo on the iPad for us, Chris, because I've got a lot of questions about Final Cut Pro, Micah
Yes.
has another message from one of our sponsors.
All right, it's time for another break. Again, shout out to Christopher Lawley for subbing in for me, Rosemary Orchard, and Christopher. I'm sure you're doing such a wonderful job. I do want to take a quick break, though, to tell you about NetSuite, who are bringing you this episode of iOS Today. Once your business gets to a certain size, well, that's when you start to see the cracks that are showing up everywhere. And you got to do something about it. Things you used to do in a day now start to take a week, and there are too many manual processes you have to keep track of. If this is you, you should know these three numbers: 36,000, 25, 1. Let's start with 36,000. 36,000, that's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system streamlining accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, and more. Let's go to the next number, 25. 25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down costs. And 1. 1, because your business is one of a kind. So you need to get a customized solution for all of your KPIs in one efficient system with one source of truth. You can manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need all in one place. And when you have everything that you need right there in this one place, it's so much simpler to make the decisions you need to make. If you're bouncing between tabs, you're bouncing between systems, you're looking over here and forgetting to look over there, that leads to decision making that doesn't have everything that you absolutely need to know. NetSuite helps make sure that it's all right there and that your decision-making process is sound and secure. Right now, you can download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist. It's designed to give you consistently excellent performance, and it's absolutely free at netsuite.com/twit. That's netsuite.com/twit to get your own KPI checklist. Again, netsuite.com/twit. And we thank you, NetSuite, for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. Let's head back to the show.
Well, that is great. Thank you very much for that, Micah. And so we've had quite a few questions come in about using Logic and Final Cut Pro on the iPad. And it's one of those things where, it's really easy for me to sit down and play with either of these apps and be like, okay, I know how to answer this question. But I'm not really in the realm of somebody who can say, yeah, this feels like it works right, or I'm doing things right, because I don't do that much video and audio editing myself anymore. But Chris, you have a YouTube channel, a very successful, excellent YouTube channel that all of our listeners and watchers should check out. And you make a lot of videos. So you have been diving into Final Cut Pro and you've been playing with it on the iPad. And so I did ask you before, so this isn't completely a surprise. Could you give us a demo of how Final Cut Pro works for you and the things that you are doing with it?
Yes, absolutely. I have a demo project prepared. For the people that are listening to the audio, I'm going to do my absolute best to describe things in detail. But I am a visual person, so if you're interested in Final Cut, I recommend checking out the video section of this. But I will do my best, I promise. Final Cut on the iPad was a big key piece for me to come back to the iPad full time. I needed a reliable video editor, and I got it. Now, Final Cut on the iPad is not one-to-one with Final Cut on the Mac. It is a brand new version of Final Cut. It is not a port of the Mac version. From what I understand, there is some shared code base, but it is primarily written and designed for the iPad and the different interactions the iPad has. So yes, the iPad does have a keyboard and mouse, but it also has touch and the Apple Pencil. And that's where the iPad version of Final Cut really differs from the Mac version. So while it's not one-to-one, there will be things that kind of go back and forth. So I'm going to cut over to my iPad now. And the first thing I want to start off with is files. So when I was in film school, I am so sorry I just said that sentence. I know it sounds very pretentious, but just bear with me for a second. The thing that was distilled in me, the very first thing that was ever just drilled into my head was organize your media. Now, when it comes to the iPad, it's a little different than Finder. You have your different locations. So on the side here, you have iCloud Drive, which is probably typically where most people save files and stuff like that. But then there's this On My iPad section. And that is just for local storage. This doesn't sync to the cloud. It doesn't ever get removed from your device. It just stays on your iPad. So this is the section I use when I'm editing videos on the iPad. I have a folder right here called temp. Normally I will have like project folders and stuff in here, but I just called this a temp one, so I knew it was my temporary project. And this is a video I'm working on right here. It's my stage manager guide. So that's the video. And then I have some subfolders. I have all my B-roll shots, my top-down shots, and my A-roll shots, which is also known as talking head. So I have all that stuff imported. I'm going to go ahead and open up Final Cut here. And when you come into Final Cut, you will first be greeted with a place to create a project, and you can come in here and create new project. If you know stuff about video, you can go in and you could change the timeline settings. But honestly, if you're not 100% comfortable with this, just leave it on automatic. And what happens is it takes the first clip you add to your timeline and it adjusts the project settings to that. So just leave it. We can leave it alone and leave it at that. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this up. And on the left-hand side, I already imported some media here because I was making sure I had all this stuff working for this demo. But you can come over here to this box with an arrow coming down, and this is your import button. You can import from photos or you can import from files. I'm gonna go ahead and open files. We can go to the recently used stage manager and top down. And here's all my top down shots. If you have a keyboard attached, you can just hit Command A and then open, and it'll import all of that media for you. And it is blazing fast. I am using an M2 iPad Pro, but this will also works on the M1 iPad Pro. Apple recommends you either have an M1 or an M2 iPad to use Final Cut with. I'm not going to get into whether that's necessary or not, but I definitely see the benefits of having these fast iPads with these fast chips in them. Now, one thing I do whenever I am organizing media and stuff like that is I use the keyword phrase. So if you select a clip right here, you can come down here to this this button right here that has that has this key, and you can tap on that, and there's different options in here. So you can see I already have A-roll and B-roll imported. I'm just going to add top down. Forgive me, I'm doing this one-handed, so I'm not going to capitalize things properly. Now, one thing I don't like about Final Cut is the way it handles multiple clips. So if we want to keyword multiple clips, you have to come over here to select and then select a whole range of clips, and it's just kind of annoying. And then you can come down in here and do that. There's not really good way, like you can't click on a clip and then shift click on another clip. They don't have band selection, which is kind of annoying because the iPad does support that. But once you have your keywords and stuff and everything organized, what I like to do is as I'm working on this, I come up to this filter option up here, keywords, and I filter by stuff I'm doing. Now, over here, these are my A-roll clips. So this is my video right here. This is my video. This is the audio for it. This is the ad for that video. This is the ad for that audio. You might notice if you're watching the video, my footage is really washed out. Ignore that. I shoot in what's called a log profile, which means it's very flat. So it makes it good for color grading. I'm just going to come over here. If you do ever do log stuff, you can come over here. You can select the inspector pane and then change log processing and select the proper log format for you. Now, what's nice is Final Cut for the iPad supports multicam. So if you're doing a big shoot and you have multiple cameras all set up, you can actually sync all those cameras together and you can cut them. But what I do is I have my video and my audio recorded separately. My audio gets recorded to a Zoom H4n, and this allows me to get really nice, clean audio for my video, but I need to sync those two up. So I can hit that select button again, select my video, select my audio, right click on it, and go create multicam clip. Now, what this will do is it will use my audio to synchronize these clips. So my video does have audio attached to it, and that's necessary for it, but it's not a very good, clean audio because the DAC on a camera gets noisy. Rose, if I'm going too fast, or if you want to jump in at any point, or if I'm getting too nerdy,
what I
just let me
just
know.
wanted to mention here is this is also great if, like, for example, you've got like two people who are recording the same thing at the same time, but from different angles, or maybe you've got, say, a top-down camera and then a front camera, and you were recording both at the same time. Multicam means that you can do multicam with cameras as well as audio. So that's a really nice feature. And that's definitely a good tip. Something I learned from David Sparks, my co-host on Automators. His daughter did a lot of film production at I think just high school in the US. She was at a special arts school, but they used their iPhones. They would put their iPhones like in their pockets or hold them really close to themselves and use those as microphones to record the audio. And then they could record, the video with other cameras. And then they'd have audio from up close to a person, which was much better than any microphone that's built into a camera is really going to be a great microphone for audio. So if you need good audio on a video, then there's a couple of options.
Yep, 100%. I strongly recommend if you're doing some kind of interview thing or something where you want good, clean audio, do not rely on the camera or the microphone that is built into cameras, because they just don't sound very good. But once you have those clips selected, you can just hit create and it will build out this multicam clip for you. If you do have multiple cameras, you can cut in between them and stuff like that. But we can just drag and add that to the timeline. Really nice. Now, you can see the color grade is off on this because of the way I shot this. This video was intended for me to be editing on the Mac and Mac Final Cut. So getting into some very nerdy, heavy settings that I'm not going to get into the details of. That's why this footage looks off. Don't worry about it. It's not going to be something that if you shoot it that way, it's not going to. It's just not going to look very good on the video feed for this, but that's okay. Once you have all that stuff selected, you can kind of come through here, and let me turn the volume down. So, that's coming through my headphones. Too many things happening at once. I'm sorry. But once you're coming through here, you can come through and you can cut up this stuff. Now, there are a ton of keyboard shortcuts in Final Cut Pro. There was just an update a couple weeks ago to add more keyboard shortcuts. You can hold down the command key on an iPad to see all of the keyboard shortcuts available. One of my personal favorite ones is just Command B, and that will take whatever clip is selected and add a cut. And you can add another cut and just hit Command B and then delete, and it will delete the clip. It's really nice, really fast. But there are these buttons down here that basically allow you to make cuts. And what this does is it will allow you, so we'll click this button right here, and it'll make a cut, and then it'll delete everything before it, and the button to the right of it will make a cut and delete everything to the right of it after it. Or you can just use this other button right here, and it'll just make a normal cut. So there's a lot of ways when it comes to editing video, you can just cut things back and forth. Really nice. I really like the way Final Cut Pro on the iPad handles this. I'm able to cut up videos very fast. It's very, very quick.
Yeah, it is very nice that all of those things are there and work the same way across different video applications as well. So if you've worked with something like I often work with ScreenFlow, if you've worked with that before, then a lot of this will be very familiar and translate, even if the names for things aren't exactly the same.
Exactly. A long time ago, a lot of video editor or video apps and stuff kind of came up with very similar keyboard shortcuts. So Command B in pretty much every application is cut because it stands for the blade tool. So that it should be very similar. I like that about that. But again, you can hold down the command key. You can see that. You can also search. So if you start typing, so you can say go to, and it'll bring up all of those shortcuts that start with go to, beginning of the time, end of time frame, next edit, next frame, all that stuff. So you can search for keyboard shortcuts as well.
Nice.
Yeah, that's really handy. One thing that's really cool about Final Cut for the iPad is they understand, excuse me, they understand that it's a smaller device. So everything is kind of modular. You can resize certain panels. You can turn off this inspector pane. You can make the timeline smaller, so you can make your video preview bigger. It scales really well. The thing that it doesn't do, though, is it doesn't have proper external monitor support. So if you plug this into an external monitor thinking you're going to blow it up nice and big and have a ton of space, it actually really just mirrors the iPad app, and it doesn't give you any extra space to work in, which is kind of frustrating. So if you're seeing that, that's how it is. I've never gotten a straight answer as to why that it is that way. So yeah.
Sometimes things just are.
That's basically what I've got. So once you kind of like have your video all cut up, you can come in here and add effects and stuff like that. I want to quickly talk about this button in the top or in the bottom right corner of the playback window. In here, you can turn on things like you can change the background player. You can change the playback quality. So if you're editing really high resolution footage and it's really choppy, you can come in here and set it to performance. Or if you're just editing 1080p or even 4K footage, you can set it to quality so you get nice quality playback. It's going to look like what it looks like when it exports. There's guide options. So if you're used to like center or horizontal lines or safe areas, which aren't really relevant anymore, you can turn those on if you want. But this option right here is what I want to talk about, is video scopes. So there are different options in here. There's histograms, there's vector scopes, and my personal favorites, waveforms. So you can use these to color grade your footage. So what you can do is you can turn this on, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off this other panel right here and bring up the inspector panel. And in the inspector panel, there's different tabs over here when you are editing footage. So this first tab is the format tab, allows you to change the clip speed. We'll get into that in a second. Opacity, blend modes. Then there's transform and position and all that stuff. Audio. But the one that I want to talk about is effects. So in effects, you can come over here to the plus button and you can add a color adjust effect. And what this will allow you to do is color grade your footage. Now, with using these scopes right here, so using the waveform, I am going to color grade this footage. So I want to bring it up. So I want to make it a little bit brighter. Why is it? Oh, there it goes. So with these, you want to know kind of everyone's camera is a little different, but typically you want to keep it between 0 and 100 on this scope. So we're going to turn that's way too high. We're going to turn the contrast up, the exposure up. So, sorry, I'm kind of doing this like hat with one eye, so it's not going to look the best. But we're going to just call that, we're just going to pretend that's the best color grade I've ever done. And that looks amazing, even though it does not. But that's okay.
So could you use this, Chris, if you had, say, a black and white video, could you use it to try and put that into color? If maybe you've had an old film camera in the family years ago and there's some black and white footage, could you use this to color it? Or would that not really work? You could just make it sort of sepia or something instead.
Yeah, you'd make it like looking sepia. It wouldn't look good. So there's a difference between, so you might have noticed, so with this, like it looks very flat and there's not a lot of color. And then when I enable it, there's color again. So there's flat profiles and log profiles, which shoot very log, but maintain a lot of information that allow you to color grade footage like this. When something's black and white, that's baked into there and there's no color information in that footage whatsoever. So there are processes that people have done in the past. You can go back and look at like the Wizard of Oz and stuff like that, where people have, color graded and it was called Technicolor back then, but they add color into footage and then we're able to capture color footage and stuff like that. There are processes like that, but it's not something like that. That's a big old whole nother thing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I remember hearing like the first color photos were actually them taking the same photo, but with like a blue filter, a red filter, and I think a yellow filter was the other one, or maybe it was a green. But either way, they took the same photo with multiple filters and then sort of combined them together to get a color photo instead of doing that. So it makes a lot of sense that you wouldn't be able to take all black and white footage and make it colorful.
Yeah, that would be really cool, and actually would be a really interesting test for an AI model one day to see like if that was actually possible. Huh? You got my brain thinking now. So yeah, but once you have this, you can come over here and you can select the more menu and you can copy these effects and you can paste them to your other clips. Now, here's my biggest source of frustration with Final Cut on the iPad. There is no way to select a range of clips and to paste an effect on all of them. So in traditional video editing, you would edit all of your footage and then color grade after you have your edit. If you do that, you are going to spend all day copying and pasting effects one at a time. It is very frustrating. I don't know why they did it that way. It's a huge bummer, but there's no way to select a whole range. Command A doesn't work. You can't do it.
The only thing I'm wondering is Final Cut isn't an app that comes pre-installed on your iPhone and your iPad like, say, Safari does. So I'm wondering if maybe there's going to be an update after iOS 17 comes out for Final Cut Pro and maybe Logic Pro that will give you shortcut support for things like that, or just give you support for things like that. Maybe both.
That's what I'm hoping.
Maybe it's coming.
That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that kind of thing is coming, because this right here is the biggest roadblock for me to edit on the iPad for every video. Typically, when I have really big videos that I know I'm going to have to color grade hundreds of clips, I edit them on the Mac because it's just a lot faster that way. When I have smaller videos that I know, like, hey, I have some A-roll and a few B-roll shots, that's when I edit it on the iPad. Or if I'm traveling or something, then I'll edit on the iPad. But this right here is my biggest roadblock from editing on the iPad full time. But I will say their audio effects are very good. So they have voice isolation, loudness, which will make your clips louder if somebody's talking very quiet, it wasn't captured loud enough, and noise removal. So voice isolation will just kind of isolate the voice. Does what it says on the tin. Loudness bumps up the volume, and noise removal will remove any background audio and stuff like this. And it works very, very well. I had a video that I recorded, not this last WWDC, but 2 WWDCs ago, in front of the Apple Park Visitor Center. And there were cars driving by, buses, people. And I turned that feature on and you just couldn't hear it. You just heard me. It was very, very good. So those enhancements are really nice, but they also have a single band EQ and compressors for audio people out there. These are really nice features to have. If you've never played with these, they have presets in them and EQ modes that you can try out, and you can kind of play with them for the different kinds of voices and audios that you're recording to see what works for you. Everyone's voice is different. So just because one thing, say, works for me, it doesn't mean it's going to work for Rosemary. You have to really play with these depending on your person. For me, lucky for me, I only ever record me. So I just have a bunch of presets for my voice that I apply on the Mac version. Again, another source of frustration for Final Cut on the iPad. There is no way to create preset effects, unlike the Final Cut on iPad or Final Cut on the Mac, where I have probably 20 different presets that I can use at any given time.
Yeah, that's really cool. One of the things I want to mention is, those audio effects that you were mentioning are actually something that's built into iOS, and I'm pretty certain it's taking advantage of that. So now, if, for example, you're on the phone with somebody or similar, then you can actually change your microphone to use voice isolation and things like that. And this is something in FaceTime that I think they're using iOS 17 to roll it out to all kinds of audio communication, where you can say, okay, no, focus on my voice, or actually, no, I do want other sounds in here. Maybe I'm also playing an instrument, or I'm trying to, demonstrate the cute sounds that my pet is making or something like that. So yeah, this is, really nice that it's there and being taken advantage of, even if there are some frustrations with Final Cut Pro. Yeah.
And the frustrations are very much that I've been editing video I started editing video when I was 12. So I've been using all sorts of different video editors. And to me, there are some basic features that should be in every video editor that aren't quite here. But I also need to keep in mind this is very much a version 1.0, and that stuff will come at some point. Now, some cool stuff that Final Cut does have. I'm going to cut back over to my iPad here. Some cool stuff that it does have some preset color grades and stuff like that. I'm not the biggest fan of them. They have blur effects. They have distorts. They all have stylized stuff. That's pretty cool. There's transitions, so cross dissolves and fades and all that stuff. Built-in titles, but they also have animated titles as well. So you can kind of let's see here. Let me grab one of these. Why is it not? Is this not one of the animated ones?
I think the animated
there
ones
we go.
are.
There we go.
Yeah. You
there we
have
go.
to, like,
it just wasn't animating it in the preview. My brain gets mixed up between things that are in the Mac version and the iPad version sometimes. So it's you got to remember. But that is in the Mac version. It's kind of weird that it's not here because that would be nice. But yeah, so they have animated titles and stuff like that, which is great because I am not a graphic designer. I am terrible at graphic design stuff. So it's nice that these are in here. Now, one of the really cool things, and I should have shot some footage to show this off, and I will try and show it off, but there is this background feature. And the way this works is you're supposed to film your set. So you can kind of see where I'm sitting. You're supposed to film your set without your subject in it. So I shouldn't be in there. And then you can get back in there. And what this will do is it will use machine learning to cut out your background and add in something like this guy. And why didn't it work right? Let's try that again. It is not working right. It's probably because I didn't film this properly, but because I'm replacing it and not.
Yeah, you need to add it on top. It's kind of a mask, I believe. Or an overlay.
Let us see here. I didn't film it right. Anyways, it should remove the background and leave the subject, but I did not film this correctly because I don't have a section in here that is without the subject, me in this case. But it is really cool if you don't have like an interesting, like a background you want. There are a ton of background options in here. Some are a bit more stylized than maybe you should use. That's probably my nice way of saying, they're not the best looking, but that's okay. They get the job done. I like some of these color ones, like this Aurora one I think looks really nice. Some of these black and white ones look really good. There's also objects in here, so you can do things like countdowns, basic shapes, thumbs up, a play button that resembles a certain video playing website's logo, but it's definitely not it for legal reasons, cursor, bell, all that stuff is in there. But my favorite feature about the Final Cut on the iPad is this soundtracks tab. It has all this built-in music that is really good. Like it's really good music. And one of the coolest things about it is we can add a song to it. So I'm just going to add this first one right here. And you can kind of see it's not very long of a clip. But you can take this clip and unlike any other music track or music service I've ever used, you can just drag it and see how, if you're watching the video, you can see how it's empty. That basically means in the timeline, nothing would be playing. There's no audio there. I'm going to go ahead and release it. Give it just a second here. And now. There we go. Okay. It auto fills and auto generates the music track to make it the length that you want it to be. You can make it as short as you want it to be. You can make it as long as you want it to be. And dear listener, I cannot tell you how much time I have spent trying to make a short audio track work for a long clip, where you're like trying to find that right beat where to cut and splice the two tracks together. This, you literally just drag it and it figures it out for itself, and you cannot tell at all. It is so unbelievably good. I love this feature in Final Cut. It saves me so much time.
That is very useful. And this is one of those things where people who are trying to create videos will often run into, the block of it's not so much that you need to be great at being, a video personality, for example, if you are doing something like Chris's videos on YouTube where, you're talking about things and showing them off. You don't just need to know your stuff and be good on video. You also need to know how to record it and how to do music and how to do all the editing and so on. And creating music is a very different skill set to creating videos. And, there's definitely overlap in there. But just like you said, Chris, you're not a graphic designer. You don't, necessarily have the skills or want to develop the skills to do fancy animated intro title screens, but the fact that that's all there is really lovely. And of course, you can also import things from elsewhere. So if somebody else makes one for you, then you can use that. You could use Keynote and export Keynote as a video and import that into Final Cut so that you can use that as an intro slide if you wanted to, if you do want to add your own stuff. And I really love the way that things work as well. You can also, I think you can even directly record video into Final Cut on your iPad, right? Using the iPad cameras.
Yeah, so there are some features in Final Cut for iPad that are specific to that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the video camera icon up at the top, and hopefully this doesn't crash. Okay, hey, it worked. And you can see the backside of my desk because that's where it is. But you can film all sorts of different stuff in here, and this will go directly into your project. You have setting features, you have autofocus controls, manual focus, you have frame rate controls, you have resolution controls, exposure, all sorts of different things. You can even film slow-mo clips right in here as well. So you can film it without even going into the camera app. Now I'm going to switch that. Now, another iPad specific feature is this scrub wheel right here. This is really cool for those that are editing without a keyboard and mouse or trackpad. This feature right here brings up this little scrub option, and Final Cut crashed. This is why you don't put developer betas on your iPads, people. All right, there we go. Now we're back into it. So bringing up the scrub wheel, hopefully it won't crash this time. And you can scrub through your timeline. You can do it kind of slowly, or you can do it really fast. And you can scrub to the point that you want anywhere, which is really cool. Like, I love this feature. I really want Apple to make a physical scrub wheel so I can pair it with the Mac or the iPad and have a physical. That I think that would be really cool. But when you can also take a clip, if you have a clip selected, you will see this option appears down here where this one's selected. This will scrub the timeline header. This right here, if you switch to nudge, this will move the clip. So if you can move it just by a couple frames, or you can move it really fast, so it moves it by seconds or minutes. But yeah, you can nudge clips, so that way you can get them precisely where you want, which is really nice when you're in a touch mode in Final Cut, because we have these big old meaty finger hands. They're not very precise. This allows you to get precise, and when it comes to video editing, you need to be precise. The last feature that's iPad specific that is probably the biggest thing is you can use the Apple Pencil to create animations. Now, I am horrible at this. This is why you don't see me do this a lot. But I am going to take this bit right here, and I will draw an arrow on my R2C4 unit and say, "Hi, how are you?" Okay, that's terrible. But what you can do with that is now we will come back here, and it should animate. So you can create animations. And let me tell you, back in my film school days, I used to do this stuff in After Effects. This was kind of my specialty, to create these hand animation things like this that make it look like stuff was hand drawn on screen. That stuff used to take days to make. I just did that in, I don't even know, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. That's wild. Now, it looks terrible because I have horrible handwriting, but if you have decent handwriting, you can create really nice animations right on top of your video, and it just creates it as another clip, and you can retime it and all that stuff. You can do whatever you want. You can pull up this inspector pane right here, and you can change how long it takes to draw on. You can make it faster, you can make it longer, whatever you want. But this feature right here, people that do this I cannot underline how much time this saves you over the traditional way of doing this kind of thing, where you're doing all sorts of just wild things with mass and stuff like that. This is really, really cool.
Yeah, that is fabulous. And as it turns out, Chris, I may actually have a little recommendation for you after the show on a scrub wheel for your Mac. I have one right here, which is something I've been playing with. So yeah, it's really cool. Is there any final little tip or piece of advice or comment that you would like to make on Final Cut Pro?
Yeah, just when it comes to time to export, there's a share button right here at the top. You can export as different kind of things. There's video, audio only, current frame, which will just give you a JPEG or PNG. I don't remember which one it is off the top of my head, of the current frame that you're on. Or there's this option to export as Final Cut Pro project for the iPad. This right here allows you to create a backup of your project, or allows you to take it and move it over to the Mac. So say you do want to get some more advanced stuff. This will take this project, including that hand-drawn animation we did, and move it over to the Mac so you can get even more into things. So there have been videos that I have cut up on my iPad, but because of the color grading issues that I talked about previously, I would cut it up on my iPad and then move it over to the Mac and color grade it. Now, unfortunately, there isn't a way, first party wise, to take a Final Cut project from the Mac and move it back to the iPad. There is a open source project going around that does allow you to do this, but I've had a few issues with it, so I wouldn't rely on it. But when it comes time to export, most of the stuff that you're going to do is you're just going to select video. You can pick from the different options. If you're uploading to YouTube, there's a social platform option right there that is perfect. Export, boom, Bob's your uncle. You can upload to YouTube. And one of my favorite things that came in the last couple of years, I believe it was iPadOS 14. Rose, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was desktop class Safari. And with that, you were actually able to upload right to YouTube from your iPad. No longer have to use the YouTube app, which is limited to 1080p. So that was a big relief. So you can have a whole YouTube editing workflow right on your iPad. The color grading stuff, don't stress about it, especially if you're just shooting with an iPhone or something like that, or if you're not worried about log profiles. You don't need to stress about those issues. If I was starting off with my YouTube channel today, this is absolutely 100% the piece of software I would use for everything, because it has everything I need. I've just grown and done some more, I don't want to say advanced stuff, but I've done some stuff that's not exactly necessary, but I did it anyway. So that this really allows me to push my what I can do. But because Final Cut is on the iPad now, and with some changes in iPadOS 17 and iPadOS 16, I no longer need a MacBook. I sold my MacBook Pro. The iPad is my only portable computer now. It's what I work from every single day. And then when I have big video projects, I fall back to a Mac Studio.
Yeah, honestly, like the way that the iPad has grown over time and continues to become more and more of a regular computer, things like the external display support and Stage Manager that we talked about at the beginning, and then things like Final Cut Pro and also Affinity recently released V2 of all their apps, Affinity Publisher, Affinity Designer, Affinity Photo. They are sort of an Adobe alternative, and their apps are really great, and they've released desktop class apps on the iPad, and they are fabulous. So I can completely see why for, on the go, you don't need a laptop. And I would suggest that, more and more people would be able to consider that as an option. I'm still doing development and needing to do things like run servers on my laptop. So that's still a bit tricky. I have previously done it. I've taken a Raspberry Pi with me and run things on there, but it gets a bit tricky at some point, and then you end up managing how you manage your work instead of doing your work, which is not the most productive way of doing things. But thank you, Chris, for that really great in-depth dive into Final Cut Pro. I know a lot of our listeners have had questions, and I was going through checking them off as you answered them, even though I didn't explicitly ask them. So that's great.
Awesome.
Thank you for that. Awesome. So we have a final word from Micah before we go into the app caps.
All right, one last break for you here. We've got a word from our sponsor.
there, folks. Get ready for the Backbeat Media Podcast Network, your new go-to place for top-notch podcasting fun. You're an Apple fanboy or fangirl? We've got you covered with the Cultcast, delivering all the iNews you could ever want. More of a literature lover? Bookworm is going to rock your world. Got a thing for theater? Broadway radio is going to hit you right in the feels, while Mac Geek Gab and MacCast are here to feed all your tech cravings. Punk rock your vibe? You're going to vibe so hard with Jughead's Basement. And for all the dinosaur nerds out there, I Know Dino is basically your spirit animal. But hold up, all about that mental health, pop culture, and tech life, Christina Warren and Brett Terpstra are serving up your weekly dose. Love a good flying tale? Fig and Repeat are about to take your imagination to new heights. And hey, to all you small business gurus out there, Dave Hamilton and Shannon Jean are dropping knowledge bombs every week. Backbeat Media Podcast Network, folks. It's where your passions come alive and there's never a dull moment. Hit up backbeatmedia.com and get ready to binge.
Alrighty, it's time to head back to the show. Thank you again, Christopher Lawley and Rosemary Orchard. And I look forward to seeing you next week, Rosemary.
Well, I look forward to seeing you as well next week, Micah. And Chris, I have a little bit of news that's just snuck in. And thank you once again to Scooter X for posting a link to this in the Club Twit Discord and the chat room. Where the new iPadOS and iOS and watchOS 17 betas have just landed. You predicted it, Chris. They have indeed landed during the show. So I'm checking on my iPad. It's not showing me the update yet, but you know, they do trickle out over a little period of time. So we'll have to see what that is. Fingers crossed that widget issue with widgets just randomly resetting is solved. But now we've done that.
I'm crossing everything. Rose. That bug is killing me. But yes, I will. As soon as we're done here, I am updating.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to save installing the update though, because it's time for the app caps. So this is the part of the show where we cap off an episode. And if you're wondering, wait, where did Shortcuts Corner go? Where did feedback go? Don't worry, they'll be back next week. We wanted to save some time and give that to Chris for the deep dive. But the app cap section, we cap off the show with an app or gadget pick of the week. And we do this by putting a hat, potentially silly, potentially serious, potentially just fabulous, on top of our heads, and then picking something. So Chris, you are the guest here on today's show. So I'm going to let you go first. Please, can you tell us about the cap atop your head and then your app or gadget pick for this week?
Yes. So I am wearing my Tatooine National Park hat. It is Tatooine of the Star Wars franchise. It's got the twin suns and the Skywalker homestead on there. And it's kind of got like a nice sunset going on, you know, that iconic scene from Star Wars. And I am wearing this because at 6 p.m. Pacific time, the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka are coming out tonight. And I am very, very excited because I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. So very excited for that. But I have an app for you, and I will switch over to my iPad so I can actually show it off. This is called Floating Player. So on the left-hand side, I have Apple Music. On the right-hand side, I have Floating Player. And I do believe this does work with Spotify, but I am not a Spotify person. Now, what this does is you get this option right here. Now, Floating Player is technically an iPhone app, but because of Stage Manager, you can run iPhone apps right on your iPad. No compatibility mode. It just runs as a narrow window. What you can do is you hit this start stop button right here. And I'm going to quickly pause the music. And this creates a picture-in-picture window with what you are currently playing. You can resize the window, you can move it around, and it gives you playback controls, including going forward and going back. Now, it does give you the 10-second forward and back icons because that's what's in picture-in-picture. Like, that's what's coded into picture-in-picture. But that will skip back and forth songs. I believe that is actually a setting. Yes, skip track instead of fast-forwarding right there. You can also set show album name, and you can change like the way it displays things. But I have one of my favorite albums right here, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. It was just recently remastered in spatial. Rose, have you listened to it in spatial audio yet? It is
I
wild.
have. It's fabulous. Yeah.
There are things in it that I mean, I've been listening to this album since I was a kid. There are things in it I've never. It's amazing. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. I just recently went and saw a Pink Floyd cover band, Brett Floyd. They are absolutely wonderful. They sound just like Pink Floyd. In fact, they had touring with them the lady that did Great Gig in the Sky on tour with Pink Floyd, singing with them. It was absolutely phenomenal. It was wonderful, amazing. But yeah, it's a picture-in-picture window, so you can move it around. You can have it open when you're in other apps. It's just really nice to be able to see like what music you're playing, have playback controls right there on the screen. This works for the iPhone. This works for the iPad. I use this all the time. Anytime I post a picture or video or something, somebody always asks what that is. It's a really great app. It's $2. I use it every day. Really love it.
That is such a lovely little feature that it's taking advantage of the feature built into iOS where you can have a video continue to play back over the top of whatever it is you're looking at, but it's your music and they're using the album artwork. So you actually get to see the album artwork and appreciate it. Something that doesn't happen quite so much. I remember going through all my dad's records. He's still got a bunch of them, including a bunch of original Beatles stuff that he brought home from work between like, two pieces of wood on the back of his moped. But yeah, like going through and just being able to see, these fabulous big pictures and thinking we don't look at album artwork enough anymore. But, now you can with floating player. So my cap, my hat this week is a sort of Baker Boy style hat. Only, I decided that I was going to go fabulous or go home. Well, I'm fabulous at home today because I'm recording at home. This is rainbow. It's rainbow stripes. And then there's sequins on top of it. Yeah, it is a rainbow striped sequined Baker Boy hat because why not? The only thing it's potentially missing is glitter, but then I'd have to burn my house down because that's the only way to get rid of glitter. I have an app pick this week for folks, and this app is specifically for anybody who's using HomeKit. It's called Home Batteries for HomeKit. So when you open up the app, it shows you by room all of the things that have got batteries in and their battery percentage. That's it. It's really simple. It's color coded. So green is good. Yellow is probably needs replacing soon. Red is you're out of battery. You need to fix this. So I have, fortunately, I use another service called Home Assistant to get things into HomeKit. So I went through and modified a few battery percentages that it was sending over so that it would send over some fake data for us here. So I can see, like, for example, in my bedroom blind is currently 89% battery. That's an IKEA blind. And then I've got a bedroom motion sensor, and that's a 33% battery. So that one's probably going to need to be replaced kind of soon. The battery in that is not the sensor. The front door, that's my front door doorbell, is at 2% battery. That's probably going to need updating soon. And then the light sensor in my kitchen is completely out of battery, which may explain why some of my automations haven't been working possibly. Who knows? But as it is, this is a really simple app. It's $1.99, same price as Floating Player, and it just works. You open it up, you granted access to HomeKit. It works on the iPhone and the iPad. It doesn't have widgets or anything because honestly, what are you going to do with a widget? It doesn't have actions because you can't charge a battery from your phone. Well, I don't know. I mean, you could potentially plug something into your iPad and charge it from your iPad. I wouldn't recommend it though. Yeah, all it does is just show you your batteries, but it saves so much time versus poking about in the home app trying to look for things. And you can even filter as well. So for example, if I just want to see my blinds, then I can just type in blind and it'll show me my bedroom blind, my kitchen blind, and my office blind. And that's it. Really simple. So yeah, this is Home Batteries for HomeKit at $1.99 in the App Store. And that's the app. So with that, that is the end of today's show. I hope that you have enjoyed the show, even though it was a little bit different, and that you'll be back next week where we have got even more great content with Micah lined up for you. And of course, you can always get in touch with us and find out more about the show and watch previous episodes, listen to things by going to twit.tv/iOS to find out everything about the podcast and to subscribe for free in your favorite podcast player of choice. Of course, you can listen to us or watch us. You can join us live on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, or 1600 UTC. That's currently 5 p.m. UK time. And you can, listen to it on audio or video if you're joining us, and join us in the live chat in the Club Tweet Discord or the IRC. But we do prefer it if you download the show later so that you get the fully polished, finished version that is made by our lovely folks in the studio, where they can tidy up little things like maybe my iPhone didn't work when I tried to show it on screen. Of course, if you are a big fan of the show and you're a big fan of Twit, then you can also sign up for Club Twit, where you can join Club Twit. It's $7 a month or from $7 a month, and I'll come back to that later, to join. And then you get ad-free versions of all of our shows. Yeah, every single show. But not only do you get ad-free versions of our shows, no, you also get Twit Plus bonus content with outtakes, behind the scenes, special content from hosts, and bonus shows, which are only for Club Twit subscribers. So there's Hands on Mac, and all sorts of other great things as well. And of course, you can join our Discord, which is a lovely chat server where you can chat to other fans of the show, and of course us as hosts and other people who work in the studio as well. Yeah, lots of great people from Twit are there in that Club Twit Discord. Now, I did say from $7 a month. Don't worry, it's not a tiered system where you have to pay, $80 bazillion a month if you want access to everything. It's just if you really, really love us and you want to give us some more money, we'll let you do that. So that's an option, but it's not required. And of course, if you just download the show and you send us feedback at iostoday.twit.tv, we will still love you for doing that. If you're doing that and you want to send in a picture of your pet and pay some pet tax, please feel free to go ahead. It's not required, but again, greatly appreciated. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can folks find out more about what you're doing and things that you've been producing if they want to, or rather, where should they go to find that out, because they're going to want to?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's always lovely to be here. You can find all my work on YouTube. Just search Christopher Lawley, Lawley, or you can go to my website, theuntitled.site, and there has links to all my YouTube stuff, Mastodon, Instagram, all the wallpaper packs and everything that I do. You can go there. But yeah, that's where you can find my work. Thank you so much for having me, Rose.
Well, thank you for coming on. We always appreciate it when one of us has to be out and you can come and join us instead. You are one of our favorite guests to have, especially because you spend so much time going into things like Final Cut for us, which, we can do too, but it's really nice to get that insight from somebody who actually uses the app instead of somebody who's trying it but doesn't have to use it every day. You can also find me at rosemaryorchard.com, where I've got links to things that I do, podcasts, apps, books, etc., that are available. And of course, I'm always lurking in the Club Twit Discord in the iOS Today channel. And I do try and check out the live channel while we're recording the show, as well as the IRC. As I said, don't forget, if you want to send us a question or feedback, which we'll be back with Shortcuts Corner and a feedback section next week, then you can do so at iOS Today at twit.tv. We are also on Mastodon at iOS Today at twit.social. Both of those go straight into the system so that I can easily go, this is Shortcuts Corner, this is feedback. So feel free to send that in. And in the meantime, we'll be back next week with another show for you. Goodbye, folks.
Bye.
Hey, I know you're super busy, so I won't keep you long, but I wanted to tell you about a show here on the Twit network called Tech News Weekly. You are a busy person, and during your week, you may want to learn about all the tech news that's fit to, say, not print, here on Twit. It's Tech News Weekly. Me, Micah Sargent, my co-host, Jason Howell. We talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news, and we love the opportunity to get to share those stories with you and let the people who wrote them or broke them share them as well. So I hope you check it out every Thursday right here on Twit.